The glittering facade of Hollywood has always been a masterful illusion, a carefully constructed tapestry of bright lights, red carpets, and seemingly perfect lives that millions of people watch with envy and fascination. For those who exist within the intense bubble of reality television, this boundary between what is staged for entertainment and what is terrifyingly real often blurs until it disappears entirely. We invite you to join our growing community by subscribing to this channel as we dive deep into the real stories behind the headlines, ensuring you never miss an update on the breaking developments shaking the entertainment world. In this landscape of constant surveillance, where every smile is captured and every argument is magnified, the pressure to maintain a certain image can become a heavy, suffocating weight. The public sees the grand openings, the glamorous vacations, and the high-stakes drama that drives social media trends, but behind the closed doors of multi-million-dollar Los Angeles residences, a far more volatile reality often unfolds. It is a world where relationships are tested not just by the ordinary friction of daily life, but by the relentless scrutiny of millions of onlookers, creating a pressure cooker environment where the slightest spark can trigger an absolute explosion. For years, viewers have watched the dramatic highs and lows of their favorite television personalities, treating their lives as a form of modern mythology, a continuous soap opera designed for casual consumption. Yet, there are moments when the performance ends and a raw, deeply unsettling truth emerges from the shadows, reminding everyone that beneath the produced storylines are real people facing real, life-altering crises. The transition from public adulation to private chaos is often sudden, leaving fans and commentators scrambling to understand how a life that seemed so enviable could unravel so completely in the span of just a few frantic hours. This is the setting for a story that has recently sent shockwaves through the heart of the entertainment industry, a narrative that began not under the studio lights of a television set, but in the dark, quiet corners of a private home where hidden tensions had been quietly simmering for months, waiting for the inevitable moment when everything would spill over into public view. To truly understand the gravity of the situation that has recently come to light, one must look at the broader culture of celebrity relationships in Southern California, where the line between love and conflict is frequently broadcast to the world. In a city where reputation is everything, the breakdown of a domestic partnership is not merely a private tragedy, it becomes a public spectacle, analyzed by legal experts, dissected by fans, and captured on whatever recording devices happen to be within reach. The modern reality star lives in an ecosystem where privacy is an expensive luxury and where the instinct to document every single interaction can turn a standard domestic dispute into a permanent digital record used in a court of law. It is within this intense atmosphere that a prominent television figure, someone who has spent over a decade navigating the turbulent waters of public opinion and high-profile relationship scandals, found himself entangled in a nightmare that surpasses any scripted storyline. Over the past several years, this individual has become synonymous with pop culture drama, a lightning rod for criticism and fascination alike, whose every romantic move is tracked with obsessive detail by media outlets across the globe. When a new relationship blossomed in the wake of previous, highly publicized heartbreak, it seemed to offer a chance at a fresh chapter, a new beginning away from the toxic remnants of the past. The public watched as this new couple appeared at events, sharing smiles and projecting an image of mutual support and shared ambition, leading many to believe that stability had finally been achieved. However, the reality behind the carefully curated photographs and the brief public appearances was far more complicated, marked by a growing sense of unease and hidden conflicts that were carefully kept away from the cameras until they could no longer be contained. The contrast between the public perception of a glamorous romance and the private reality of a deteriorating domestic environment highlights the profound isolation that often accompanies modern fame, where individuals feel trapped within their own public personas, unable to seek help until a crisis forces their hand, as the warmth of early summer settled over the exclusive neighborhoods of Los Angeles. A series of events was set in motion that would completely shatter the peace of one particular household, transforming a sanctuary into a chaotic legal battleground. The date was June 3rd. A night that began like many others, but quickly degenerated into a scene of intense verbal hostility and escalating fear that would ultimately require the intervention of law enforcement and the highest levels of the judicial system. Inside the residence, the air was thick with unresolved grievances and a palpable sense of distrust that had been building between the inhabitants for a considerable amount of time. In these high-stakes environments, a simple disagreement can instantly morph into something far more dangerous when outside influences and additional family dynamics are introduced into the mix. The presence of extended family members within a shared living space can often act as a catalyst, amplifying existing tensions and creating a situation where allegiances are fiercely drawn and compromises become entirely impossible. It was during these tense hours that the fundamental trust required for any relationship to survive was completely obliterated, replaced by an atmosphere of mutual suspicion where individuals began to view each other not as partners or guests, but as adversaries. The psychological toll of living in a state of constant defensiveness cannot be overstated, particularly when the threat of physical escalation begins to loom over every conversation. As arguments echoed through the halls of the home, the situation reached a critical tipping point, driven by the realization that private moments were being secretly recorded, a discovery that instantly transformed a verbal dispute into a desperate struggle for control and self-preservation. This moment of realization, where the privacy of an argument is violated by the lens of a camera, often serves as the point of no return, triggering primal instincts of anger and defense that can lead to disastrous consequences for everyone involved, setting the stage for a dramatic confrontation that would alter multiple lives forever. The turning point of this escalating nightmare arrived with a terrifying suddenness on the night of June 3rd, inside the walls of Tom Sandoval's Los Angeles residence, a home that quickly transformed from a private sanctuary into a chaotic crime scene. What began as a standard verbal argument between the 44-year-old Vanderpump Rules star and his 33-year-old model girlfriend, Victoria Lee Robinson, rapidly spiraled out of control as deep-seated resentments and intense paranoia took center stage. The fragile peace of the household shattered completely the moment Sandoval noticed that the intimate, heated argument was being actively recorded on a mobile device, a discovery that instantly amplified the existing tension to a fever pitch. In the high-stakes world of reality television and public image, the realization that a private meltdown is being captured on camera can trigger an immediate, desperate instinct to protect oneself. And for Sandoval, this moment signaled the point of absolute no return. Tensions boiled over in a flash as Sandoval leaned forward, demanding to know if he was being recorded. A direct confrontation that shattered any remaining boundaries of personal space and restraint. It was at this precise, volatile second that the dynamic in the room shifted from an isolated couple's dispute into a dangerous multi-person altercation, as Victoria's father, Will Robinson, who had been staying at the property, decided to physically intervene. Witnessing the confrontation escalate between his daughter and Sandoval, Will Robinson rose from his seat, moving decisively to insert himself into the fray by wrapping his arms tightly around Sandoval's waist and shoulders in a frantic attempt to pull the reality star away. This sudden physical contact instantly transformed the psychological warfare into a raw, physical struggle for dominance and safety within the confined space of the home. The account of what transpired next varies wildly depending on which side of the legal aisle is speaking. But the legal documents filed in the Los Angeles Superior Court paint a vivid picture of a man who felt utterly trapped and violated within his own walls. According to the sworn statement submitted by Tom Sandoval, the physical intervention by Will Robinson felt like a direct, aggressive assault, leaving him with no choice but to react instinctively to break free from the hold. In his official filing, Sandoval explicitly stated that Will Robinson was the very first person to initiate physical contact during the entire incident, insisting that at no point did he ever physically pursue either Victoria or her father. Desperately trying to create distance between himself and the older man, Sandoval used both of his hands to forcefully shove Will Robinson away from his body, a powerful defensive maneuver that would yield immediate and highly controversial consequences. The force of the shove propelled Will Robinson backward across the patio area, sending him crashing directly into a lit, active fire pit that was burning in the outdoor space. This terrifying moment, where an aging father tumbled into an open flame during a domestic dispute, represents the absolute peak of the physical chaos that engulfed the property that evening. Yet, rather than de-escalating the situation, the fall into the fire pit served to deepen the hostility and resentment, as a severely shaken Will Robinson managed to extricate himself from the heat, retreating back toward the house alongside his daughter while tracking the movements of the reality star. The sheer panic of the moment was captured on subsequent audio and video clips, where the echoes of screaming matches and accusations of violence bounced off the walls of the luxury estate. creating a digital trail of breadcrumbs that would soon be analyzed by millions of people across the globe. In the chaotic aftermath of the fire pit incident, Tom Sandoval allegedly retreated deeper into the interior of his home, seeking refuge from the unfolding madness by locking himself inside a spare bedroom to escape further confrontation. However, according to the official court documents, the safety of that locked door was incredibly short-lived, as the rage of his attackers followed him straight down the hallway. Sandoval claimed under oath that an enraged Will Robinson pursued him to the spare bedroom, where the older man launched a violent assault on the property itself, using his fists to punch an approximate 12-inch hole entirely through the solid wood of the door in an attempt to breach the barricade. This act of property destruction added a chilling layer of terror to the evening, demonstrating a level of physical aggression that left Sandoval genuinely fearing for his life and physical well-being. The breach of the door allowed Victoria Lee Robinson to enter the room, and it was at this moment that the situation turned brutally physical for the reality television star. The legal filings allege that Victoria immediately launched a relentless physical assault on Sandoval, repeatedly striking him in the head, face, and temple area with incredible force. A barrage of blows that Sandoval claims he managed to partially capture on his own video recording device. The impact of the physical trauma was immediate and severe, with Sandoval testifying that the sheer force of the blows to his head caused his vision to blur instantly, while leaving him with significant, long-lasting injuries to his ears and his neck. The physical toll of this domestic nightmare extended far beyond the immediate moments of the assault, lingering as a painful reminder of the violence for several weeks to follow. In the days following the June 3rd altercation, Tom Sandoval dealt with persistent, agonizing pain radiating through his mouth and jaw, a symptom so severe and unyielding that it ultimately forced him to seek emergency medical evaluation at a local hospital. While emergency room doctors conducted extensive imaging and successfully ruled out any permanent structural fractures to his facial bones, the reality star remained plagued by a profound inability to fully open his mouth or consume solid food properly, requiring ongoing medical monitoring and follow-up care. To substantiate these serious claims before a judge, Sandoval's legal team included a comprehensive series of raw, graphic photographs within the official court filing, displaying the clear physical damage, bruising, and swelling he alleges to have suffered entirely at the hands of Victoria Lee Robinson. These images provided a stark, undeniable contrast to the glamorous public persona that Sandoval had spent years cultivating on television, laying bare the grim reality of a domestic environment that had devolved into pure, unadulterated violence. Recognizing the immediate and ongoing danger of the situation, the Los Angeles Superior Court took swift action upon reviewing the evidence, officially granting Tom Sandoval a temporary restraining order against both Victoria Lee Robinson and her father, Will Robinson. The judicial order went a step further by legally commanding both individuals to immediately vacate Sandoval's property, effectively stripping them of their access to his home and attempting to establish a secure boundary of protection around the battered television star, who had spent the weeks following the attack floating between temporary hotel rooms and the couches of close friends. The legal intervention of the Los Angeles Superior Court marked the beginning of a massive public reckoning, exposing a deeply toxic backstory that had been hidden behind the couple's glamorous red carpet appearances. As the temporary restraining order forced Victoria Lee Robinson and her father to pack their belongings and leave the property, the sheer scale of the domestic trauma Tom Sandoval had been enduring behind closed doors began to fully unravel. In his detailed court filings, the reality star admitted that the violent altercation on June 3rd was not an isolated incident, but rather the explosive climax of a prolonged pattern of behavior that had left him feeling increasingly isolated and controlled. Sandoval revealed to the court that his relationship with the 33-year-old model had been plagued by prior instances of severe physical and emotional abuse that he had previously hidden out of shame and a desperate desire to protect their public image. He alleged that on multiple occasions, Victoria had launched physical attacks against him, targeting his face and neck during routine arguments, and had once even hurled a full, heavy Gatorade bottle directly at his head in a fit of rage. This revelation painted a chilling portrait of a household dictated by volatility, where the boundary between ordinary relationship friction and dangerous domestic battery had been crossed long before the police were ever called to the residence, beyond the immediate physical violence. The legal documents shed light on a deeply unsettling campaign of digital harassment and psychological isolation designed to strip Sandoval of his personal autonomy and independence. The 44-year-old television personality claimed under oath that Victoria had engaged in extreme controlling behaviors, which included forcibly changing his personal social media passwords to lock him out of his own platforms and secretly planting Apple AirTags on his property. By utilizing these tracking devices, she was allegedly able to monitor his exact movements and locations at all hours of the day, creating an environment of constant surveillance that made him feel like a prisoner within his own life. The emotional toll of this hyper-surveillance was compounded by a severe sense of financial and domestic displacement, as Sandoval explained to the judge that Victoria and her father had effectively taken complete control of his rental residence. Despite the fact that Sandoval was entirely responsible for paying the costly monthly rent on the luxury home, the aggressive presence of the Robinson family had forced him to flee his own living space for his own physical safety. In the traumatic weeks following the June 3rd assault, the high-profile reality star found himself essentially homeless, bouncing restlessly between various expensive hotels and relying on the generosity of close friends for a place to sleep. All while his alleged abusers continued to live comfortably inside the home he was actively funding. This complex web of manipulation was further complicated by a profound sense of personal regret. As Sandoval candidly shared with the court his deep remorse over his own past actions to protect Victoria from the legal consequences of her behavior. He revealed that following a previous domestic dispute, he had actually assisted in bailing Victoria out of jail after receiving a desperate phone call from her and subsequently transferring a significant amount of money to her mother to secure her release. Sandoval lamented this decision bitterly in his legal declaration, realizing in hindsight that his willingness to shield her from accountability had only served to embolden her behavior and prolong his own suffering. Now facing a total crisis, his legal team made a desperate plea for an immediate mandatory move-out order, emphasizing that the reality star was in a state of constant terror and possessed absolutely no alternative long-term housing accommodations. The judge's decisive order requiring the Robinsons to vacate the premises was a critical victory for Sandoval, but the battle over public perception and legal truth was only just beginning to heat up. Hours after the restraining order was officially granted, a highly explosive piece of footage obtained and published by TMZ thrust the entire incident into the global spotlight, allowing the public to witness the raw, unfiltered terror of the confrontation for the very first time. The video footage offered a jarring look at the exact moments leading up to the physical clash, capturing the intense screaming match between Sandoval, Victoria, and her father on the outdoor patio. The clip visually confirmed the layout of the scene, showing Sandoval positioned defensively near a doorframe while Victoria and her father Will were seated nearby, their voices dripping with unbridled hostility. The footage vividly illustrated the rapid escalation of the argument, capturing the precise second Sandoval asked Victoria if she was secretly filming him before the older man rose to intervene, leading to the frantic push that sent Will Robinson tumbling backward into the lit fire pit. In the hours following the release of this shocking footage, Will Robinson broke his silence, delivering his own defiant counter-narrative to TMZ to defend his family's reputation. Presenting a starkly different version of the evening's events, the older man pointedly noted that the district attorney had explicitly chosen not to file criminal charges in the case for a specific reason, suggesting that the authorities did not view Sandoval as a completely innocent victim. Will Robinson claimed that the dramatic fall into the burning fire pit had caused him significant physical injuries that required immediate professional medical attention, asserting that he would continue to need ongoing medical treatment to recover from the physical aftermath of the plunge. Will Robinson maintained that his decision to contact law enforcement on the night of the incident was done entirely out of a genuine urgent concern for the safety of both himself and his daughter, portraying their actions as a necessary defense against an aggressive reality star. As media outlets like the Daily Mail rushed to contact representatives for all involved parties, the public was left to dissect a messy, tragic story of a high-profile relationship that had utterly collapsed into violence and litigation. For Tom Sandoval, an individual who has spent over a decade navigating the intense highs and brutal lows of reality television fame, this domestic violence drama represents a stark, terrifying departure from the manufactured storylines of Hollywood. It serves as a grim, sobering reminder of how easily the glamorous illusions of celebrity life can be completely obliterated by private trauma, leaving real human beings to pick up the broken pieces of their lives in the full. unyielding glare of the public eye. The final resolution of this bitter legal conflict remains to be seen, but the shocking events of June 3rd have permanently altered the trajectories of everyone involved, serving as a cautionary tale about the hidden dangers that can simmer behind the closed doors of the rich and famous.